And good afternoon, everybody. It is Wednesday, June 3rd at 3 o'clock p.m., which means it's time for Women in Business. We can all applaud now. I'm very excited today because my guest is Jane Swanzy from Swan Threads. A lot of you already know Jane. She's a contest winner. She's won contests with impressions and stitches and printwear, I believe. She's also very instrumental in working with the Houston Rodeo, and she's talked about that a lot. She owns a company called, let me show you some URLs here, Swan Threads, where she does a lot of work for the Houston Rodeo, which we're going to talk about with her quite a bit. And you can also see her Facebook page. She's a very talented and knowledgeable and innovative embroiderer, and I'm really excited that she's going to be with us today. And so as soon as I can manage running the board, which is not working as well as I wanted it to right now, I'm going to bring Jane in so we can all say hi. Hi, Jane.
Hi. Howdy.
And howdy. There you go. Well, I'm laughing at myself because I've been very proud of myself up to this point that I've been running the board and showing all the URLs and everything, that I just got lost a minute ago because I was apparently talking and trying to press buttons at the same time. But I'm better now, so we're good. But before we get into too much, I just want to say hello, Kelly. Thank you for listening while you're working. We appreciate that. Hi, Valerie. Thanks for watching us. And I'm really excited to have you here, Jane, because one of the things that I want to talk about is the Houston Rodeo and all the hoopla that happened with that earlier in the year. Because one of the things that you told me when you gave me your biographical information was 95% of what you do for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, or however you pronounce it. I was trying to learn the proper name and I didn't get it very well. And I do want to say, before you answer that, I want to say hello to a few more people. Tanya, thank you for watching us. And there's a couple of Facebook users here. If you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, you can give StreamYard permission to show us your name, because it's always nice to know who's there. But anyway, so the Houston Rodeo, was it starting or almost ready to start, or?
We were halfway through. We were 10 days into a 20-day show.
Okay, because I wasn't clear on that, but I knew that it ended up being truncated at least.
Yeah. We missed half our season, half our show.
Okay. Now, what you do for them, I know because I've seen your Facebook page and I'm friends with you. So, but you do a lot of the committee member gear.
I'm a licensed vendor, which means that I can do work directly for committee people.
Okay.
You can come to me and say, I'm on the hospitality committee. Can you put their logo on a jacket for me? And I can do that.
The hospitality?
Hospitality committee, yes.
Okay.
And I don't do all the committees because there's 35,000 volunteers and over 100 committees, but I have certain ones that I work with. The one I'm on, School Art Committee, I do most of their merchandise and, just randomly. And I do some things for some committees, but not everything for them. So it just depends. But my license agreement allows me to do any rodeo logo for anybody. I can retail it.
Okay.
And that's, a good chunk. But the majority of the business I do with them is directly with the rodeo, with the merchandising department, or with the executive committee, or, different people like that. And for that, I don't actually have to be licensed. It's a whole different deal. But I do every year there's an annual jacket and annual vest that they have, and they contract with me to put names on those jackets. They sell them. I go out there and pick them up, bring them home, put a name on them, take them back out there, and I'll probably do several hundred in between September and when the show starts.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, because I know this will be of interest to some people watching this. Definitely. How how arduous was it to get licensed with them? Let's start there.
It wasn't. When I first started doing embroidery work for rodeo people, they didn't have the licensing requirement. So I was already in
So you were grandfathered
system. Yeah. And it was just that they were trying to get control of who was doing what with the logos. And that's why they started doing the licensing. And, it was just, them calling me or sending me an email or something and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. Hopefully you'll, sign up with us. And of course, I always have, because I usually make back the money. I break even with one committee order. It pays for my license agreement. And then everything else is just profit over that. And it's, it's easy money, really.
Well, so basically how I'm understanding it works, just to be sure I'm clear, is that you pay the rodeo for your license, and then that gives you the ability to be able to use their logos or word marks or whatever.
Right, yes.
And I'm assuming that they clamp down on people who aren't licensed to make sure that the licensed people are benefiting from having a license. Basically.
Yeah, and they do that, but even though I'm licensed, I still am required to send a message to the branding department with a project. Say, I'm going to do such and such. Before I can do that, I send something to branding and say, okay, this committee wants me to do this, blah, 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 and they come back and say, okay, fine. Or, well, you need to make one little small change, or sometimes I have a committee that wants me to do something and maybe I've not done their logo before. So I have to go to branding and say, okay, this committee wants me to do this. Can you send me the artwork? And, we go from there.
Okay, so they, like most major festivals or organizations, they have a pretty tight control.
Oh yeah,
on their branding and their logos and how things look and all that, which is they should.
Yeah, they have a guideline that they put out. The PMS colors to use.
Sure.
The tight fonts, the everything. And you can use this colored logo on these backgrounds, but you can't use them on these backgrounds. And
so they're
very
really
specific.
Yeah, they're very specific. Well, this is something that I really wanted to talk to you about, because you're one of the few people I know that works for a really big thing. Does work for a really big organization, I guess. So I was kind of interested. Now, how did you get started with them? Did you it was something you were attracted to as a volunteer and then you started doing the work, or?
Well, I've been a volunteer since 1989.
Okay.
And so
it's been a while.
Been a while, but it wasn't until 2001 or 2002, January 2002, when I got my Bernina with the embroidery module and I started doing embroidery. I always just did stuff for me to wear, and I'd do it and I'd wear it to rodeo, and people started going, oh, I like that, and committees, would ask me to do their logo stuff. Well, then I didn't have to, they weren't policing it quite that much.
Right.
But I would always, check in with the merchandise manager, because I knew even then that it's better if I ask permission. And kept them always aware of what I was doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so then it just began to build from there. But it was just really started out with me putting some kind of rodeo type logo, design on a jacket or jeans or whatever like that, and wearing it out to rodeo events and parties and things like that. And it started getting interest from people. And my committee, School Art Committee, they've just been very good. They had another company that had been doing their stuff that was very, very slow at getting their things to them. And it doesn't really do you a lot of good if you're if rodeo is starting in 3 days and they can't get it to you till
Yeah,
the end of the month,
right.
and people started asking because I'd turn it quicker.
Mhm.
I get it in and get it out. So it just grew from there. It just
Okay.
it just grew from there, and then have tried to be as helpful as I can to the merchandising people.
Mhm.
And I am one of those, and for branding, but I am one of those people that's always on the lookout for somebody who is not licensed doing rodeo logos.
Well, sure.
And, that pops up on Facebook so much. And sometimes I'll just send them a message and say, I don't see you on the list of licensed vendors. Perhaps if you want to continue doing this, just don't be so stupid as to put it on Facebook.
Well, there you go. Yeah, if you're going to be an idiot, please don't be an idiot in public.
Yeah.
Well, what I love about what you just said, though, and I want to throw out a comment here first, just before, because thank you for being here, Eric. Love getting these insights from Jane. Branding guides are worth understanding, folks. And women in business is not just for women. Men can watch too. But anyway, just wanted to make that point. But what you said, there were a couple of things you said. Number one, where you work, I think, is really important, because from what you said, you wore your work and people saw it, and it kind of grew organically because you were a part of the organization already, that people were like, well, if you can do it. And then the other thing was keeping close touch with the people who control who does the logo wear, even if it's know who those people are and be friendly with them. I mean, and I think also helping to police the logo is a good thing, because it reflects on you now too, because you have a license. So
if I pay it, then you need to pay it. I don't.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, and it also helps keep the branding of the organization at the level that you want it to be at, because a lot of times people without licenses are also taking liberties with the branding and how it's done, and they turn out work that's crap, and you don't want that.
That's 90% of the reason why they went to the licensing, is to control the bad stuff.
Well, sure. You don't want people screwing up your branding. Definitely. That's why it's so important. So here you are, you've been working with the rodeo for a number of years, and this year we have this unprecedented thing happen, and the rodeo shuts down. Now, I'm assuming most of your work was done for the year.
Well, it was. I plan it so that I'm through usually by barbecue cook-off weekend, which is the weekend before rodeo starts. But, I will, if necessary, do something up to the day of rodeo start. And I will do stuff, but it just mostly I'm through by the time rodeo starts.
Right.
So everything was done. And I actually only had one outstanding invoice that hadn't been paid yet. And, I sent it in and, got it paid within the typical 2 weeks, and even had an email about as they were finally shutting the office down from one of the ladies in merchandise saying, have we got all your invoices? We want to make sure you get paid before we get sent home.
Oh, wow.
Just looking out for everybody,
That's very cool.
So I'm lucky that it was all done. I have quite a few friends in the business, that rodeo is their big business, that they weren't through.
Well, and that was kind of the question. I mean, I assumed based on what type of work that you do, that most of your stuff was done, but I know from some of the stuff that you did on Facebook subsequently, like there were vendors, artists and things, that there was usually a big art fair or something, or vendor mall or whatever it was.
Oh, the Texas vendors.
Yes.
That is a group. There's a couple of ladies. I don't know them, but they're very big with rodeo, or they're big volunteers. And they put together a Facebook group of all of the vendors who wanted to participate, who were, had booths out at rodeo, that had to shut down early so it could keep the sales going for them.
Which
And
I think is a wonderful idea.
It was a wonderful idea. And it actually, it was good because typically I don't have a chance to walk the exhibit area until the second week of rodeo.
Right.
And so I hadn't seen everybody. I hadn't got to visit with all my vendors that I usually see.
Right.
But this way I was able to find them all fairly easily. And it's been good. I think it's, not everybody made really great, sales off of it, but there are a whole lot of them that at least I think they were able to recoup their expenses.
Yeah. So at least they made something.
Yeah, they made something off of it. So it's good. And it's still going on. And they actually came in and brought in vendors from the Austin Rodeo, which was supposed to be right after Houston, and from a couple of other, not rodeo events, but other, art type things, sale events, and anybody that was impacted by it. So,
well, I want to throw in a couple of comments here, and then I want to talk about what Eric said first. This story is all about showing the work you want to do in the natural niche markets we belong to via interest. True. Go where you go and work with the things you love, which obviously the rodeo is something that you're pretty passionate about. And then Kelly said, that was so nice of them, meaning the rodeo. We have had big box not pay us during this, and we know their offices are not in the USA and we're not affected with shutdowns like this. So that also, I think it speaks for the integrity of the people who work for the rodeo, but it also speaks for the relationships.
Yes.
I mean, they knew you and you knew them, and so there was a level of trust there, I guess.
There is, but they've always been very good about getting everybody paid. If you get your invoices in, and if you know the cycle of when to get it so it gets into accounting, the longest I've ever had to wait for a check once I submitted an invoice was 3 weeks. And the only reason it was that long was someone in the accounting department had gotten sick right in the middle, and it was just chaos for them. But just, a 1 week delay was no big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So they're very good about it.
Well, let me ask you this, because, okay, granted, this didn't happen necessarily because rodeo ended up ending halfway through, and you were, but I mean, you said in the prep information that you gave me that rodeo is 95% of your business.
Yeah. So, it is, and that's my choice.
Okay, so is your, how do I say this the right way? Are things structured so that if rodeo suddenly did go boom, you'd be okay? Okay. So this is a choice that you made, and it's not like things would go boom if
no.
Okay.
I'm very fortunate that Tim makes enough money that this isn't necessarily play money for me, but life wouldn't end if I didn't get any more rodeo business. And it's my choice that it's that much, because frankly, it's, as much as I want to work, because my season is typically September through March.
Right.
And then I don't do much of anything, typically don't do anything, after rodeo, other than looking for ideas and,
right. Other than planning what you're going to do next rodeo.
Yeah, it's been different this year for some reason, but, it's just.
I think a lot of things have been different this year.
Well, I've been busy. I really typically just don't do anything, especially in April and May and June. But I've been busy, through in March and April with face covering orders from construction companies.
Sure.
And then now it's cranked up into fishing shirts, and people are, needing new caps for the summer. So this is stuff that I don't typically do at this time of year, but I'm okay with it.
Right.
Especially my fishing shirt order that was like everything that could go wrong went wrong with it, but I was able to pick it up, and Tim went with me, helped me with the boxes. and delivered them Friday afternoon. I got home at 3:00 and I emailed the invoice to the guy that had ordered them, just didn't think he'd do anything until they got back from their trip. I sent that email at 3:12. At 3:15, I was paid.
Those are the kind of clients you need. Wow.
I mean, I've had some quick ones. Typically, something like that is maybe, 10 or 15 minutes is quick to me, but 3 minutes, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to take back maybe all the bad stuff I've said about you, but you do pay quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I find interesting about what you're talking about here is everything that you are working with or on is something that's from some aspect of your life.
Yes.
Like I know that your husband is in construction.
Yes.
And I also know that he's a big hunter and fisherman.
Yes.
So it's kind of like you've built a business around stuff that you enjoy anyway, which I think is an amazing way to do it.
And it's people I know. In a lot of the other business that I get, other than the construction companies around Tim, is people, who own businesses that I know through Rodeo that come to me to get stuff done. So it's all relationships.
Sure.
I'm suspicious if I get an email or a phone call from somebody that I don't know wanting me to do something for them. I'm like, well, I don't know.
Well, I mean, you have been skillful enough at building your relationships that you don't really have to work with people that you don't have a connection to at some point, which I think is a testament to you. But I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people think they need to, like, how do I want to put this the right way? They feel like they have to go out and do cold calls and prospects and all that stuff, and they hate it and it's awful. And you're a very good example of someone who took stuff they liked doing or knew about already and made it into a way to have a business. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And I like what Jean says here. That is one thing I love about this business. You don't have to let it run your life. And you've obviously made lifestyle choices there so you can do, I mean, granted, one of your major customers has a very specific season, so it kind of dictates, but it works for you. And I like Kelly's yeah here, which came up right after you said the guy paid you within 3 minutes of the invoice.
Well, and the rodeo season works well for me because a lot of it, the working up to when rodeo starts, is during hunting season. So Tim's gone; he's out of the way. He's. I have a lot of time alone here to do whatever I need to do.
So you can concentrate on your work, and he's off doing what he does, and that works out for everybody. Yeah. And then when he's around, you can have time together. It totally makes sense. And I think ideally, that's what everybody that has their own business hopes they can do, is craft a lifestyle that works for whatever it is that they want to do. You just seem to have managed to do it. So kudos to you.
And Tim is he is my best salesperson because he'll wear something and even if I didn't do it, and somebody comments on it, goes, "Oh yeah, my wife does embroidery." He didn't necessarily say I did, but
wow, I really like that embroidery. Yeah, my wife does that.
Well, and it may or may not have been one I did because there's for the company he worked for, they used me and another company to do most of their stuff. So this logo on this shirt and this logo on this other shirt look the same. Who's to say if I did it or didn't? Because the guys always want the same brand of shirts and they always put the same logo on it, So he wears it and somebody comments and he goes, "Yeah, my wife does embroidery."
Well, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Wear your work, get your family to where you work, get your friends to where you work. The more it's out there and people see it and can comment on it, then the more likely you are to perhaps get a customer out of it. And I want to move on to something else that you've done because Oh, I like this comment from Valerie. I'm going to throw this out there real quick. I'm loving that you've been completely successful with a non-traditional schedule. My husband travels and I try to schedule work around when he's gone, and some people criticize. Well, tell those people to get stuffed, Valerie, because
Yeah.
it's your life. Good Lord. Why should they even care? but I think she has a point that if you try to do anything that's a little different, sometimes people will say, well, you shouldn't do it. And I mean, you seem to have developed a lifestyle and a schedule that works for you, and that's a good thing, I think. So
Well, and I do it this way when it comes time for me to put the stop to it, because rodeo is starting and I don't want to do any more names on jackets or committee logos. Somebody asked me about it and I say, well, as of March 1st, my rate goes up to $5,000 an item.
So if you want to give me $5,000 for this left chest name, I'll do it for you, man.
Yeah. And so far, no one's taken me up on it. And I'm okay with that. But I'm not just telling them no. I'm just telling them that, my rates have increased because this is, crunch time. And I don't want to be crunched.
Makes sense. Well, I think a lot has to do with, you found the rhythm that works for you, and it suits the lifestyle you want. And that's part of the reason why people have their own business. Right. So I think it's important that you need to be aware of that. But one of the other things I want to talk to you about, because you're the first one I've had on the podcast, I think, that's done this, contests. And they don't have them as much as they used to, but Stitches used to have the Golden Needle. Impressions, I think, still has the Impressions Awards or whatever they're calling it now. But
and Printwear did it a couple of years, a cover competition.
And I remember that. I did not remember the one that you sent me, but I remembered that they had done that in the past. So let me ask you this: what was the theory behind entering competitions? Was it just because it was a competition, or were you hoping to get noticed, or?
Not really either, because I'm not real competitive.
Okay.
So it's just one of those things that it popped up and I thought, oh, well, no one expects me to do this, so I'm going to do this. And, was very, and all of the things that I did, except the Printwear was custom stuff, but Impressions and Stitches both were stock embroidery designs. And, I have a lot of stock embroidery designs. So I just said, I'm just going to throw it out there and see if anything happens. And it took several attempts before I made first place for Impressions. And it was a little quicker with Stitches, but a lot of it just depends on how many people are entering. I just did it for fun.
Now, was the feedback that you got from the judges helpful?
They didn't really give any.
They didn't really give any?
Yeah, that was one of the things that I thought they should do, was to.
Yeah, because I kind of assumed that was something that was happening, is they were getting back to you and going, yay, this was good, or here's what you could have done better, or.
Yeah.
So it was more just kind of just to try something.
Yeah, just to do something different, kind of push myself a little bit, because like I said, I'm not competitive and I'm really very shy, regardless of, how some people see me. And this, and this helped me kind of become a little less shy.
Well, if I remember correctly, that may be how I first became aware of you, was seeing you in the contests.
Probably.
So it also did help you get a little bit more noticed in the industry.
Yes. Yeah. That's the big takeaway from it for me. It got me noticed in the industry. And being, one person operation, I don't get, there were a lot of vendors that didn't know me.
Right.
And even if I went to a trade show, they didn't really know me until the competitions.
Right.
And then
Yeah, Eric just put another comment up here about contests are how I started being public too, and all of my work was right out of my production lines. Later, as a judge, they had us give feedback at Stitches, but I have to admit I have no idea if they sent it to the competitors. Apparently
No,
not, Eric.
no, I never got anything.
Well, that's kind of, well, I just was interested because I know that's something that Eric advocates and I do too, is entering the contest. And I was wondering what you got out of it and what prompted you to do it. And I'm also kind of wondering, like the cover that you did for printwear, is that like a let me show you what I can do kind of thing, or was that I don't remember what prompted that necessarily.
The first one, the one with the swirly face
Right.
logo thing, that was really their one and only cover competition they had.
Okay.
And I happened to have the lady that was her logo had said,
right.
I asked her, I said, this would be really interesting. Can I do this? And she said, yes. And I sent it to a digitizer who was, I don't know if he's even still around in Southern California. And he said, can't be done with thread. So I said, And so I sent it to, God, the name just, Eric will know who it is. They're out of Washington State. I can't think. We'll all think of it tonight about 3 o'clock.
Yeah, we'll think of it about 2 in the morning. We'll all sit up and go, I know them.
Yeah, and I sent it to them, and they said, "Oh, sure." It may take us a couple of weeks, but we'll get it done. And so, they did, and it stitched out perfectly. And I sent it to Printwear, and I sent the story behind it of this can't be done in thread, and here it is. And I think that probably had as much to do with me getting the cover and the story as anything,
So it was the ability, but it was also the story behind it.
Right, the story behind it, yeah. And then the next year, I sent an email to the editor and said, are you going to do this again? And he replied back to me and he said, no, we're not. But if you have anything interesting, send it to me. So at that point, I already had something in my mind I wanted to do, and I already had the approval from the rodeo and the people. But I wanted to take one of the original pieces of artwork that School Art had auctioned off, one of the student artwork, and turn it into a piece, and did that. My Washington State friends that I can't think of their name right now, did the digitizing for me. And it was also a really good story because when they did this, the young lady who was her artwork, I had been in touch with her parents to make sure they were okay with me doing this. And I told her mom what was going on, and she said, okay, this is great. I'm not going to tell my daughter until this comes out. I want it to be
cool
for her. Yeah. And it was really, really great. And after the magazine came out, and I had a couple of copies for her, and I had done a sew out, just basically a sample that her mother was going to incorporate into a quilt. And we met for lunch and visited with it. Well, she was going to University of Texas at Austin and was, in some kind of boring business classes she wasn't really interested in. And what she really wanted to do was interior design. But she was not real confident about her artistic abilities. And by seeing that, she could take what she knew how to draw, and this worked very well for interior because that would have made for a great pillow,
Oh, sure, yeah.
All this, the Western rodeo crowd to decorate for. And she changed her major to the interior design.
That's so cool.
And I'm like, that's good. That just that was really fun. That was just it was supposed to be a competition, but they didn't do the competition that year. And You know,
Mhm.
I got
And you just
lucky.
happened to get in there and
Right.
have that's a very cool story. I like that story
Yeah.
a lot. Well, I like what's really interesting to me about everything we've talked about so far is that embroidery really seems to be something that makes changes in people's lives for you a little bit.
It really does. One of the fun things that I need to get back to doing is a few years ago, I would uh, decorate jeans for the ladies that, you know,
Well,
wearing them out at rodeo.
you won one of the competition. I think it was
Yeah,
in Stitches,
it
maybe.
was for stitches. That was the dragons, I think,
Yeah.
jeans. Yeah, but I would do, you know, rodeo designs, flowers and
Mhm.
horseshoes and stuff like that for these people. And it was always fun to be out there and hear somebody else that, you know, walk by me and there's somebody else walking by who has one of my designs on
Mm.
saying, "Oh, look, there's a Jane Swanzy jeans." Okay.
It's a
And
brand.
people even I didn't know was recognizing my work.
Oh yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So you are like a dyed-in-the-wool Texan. You've
Yes.
been there. I
I've
would
never lived anyplace else.
You have never lived anyplace else. So one of the things that I want to ask you, because I was reading your bio and you're talking about you went to school and you graduated with a degree in home ec with a specialty in clothing, home economics, excuse me. And then you kind of worked in a store and then you worked for a meat packing plant or meat packers or whatever you want to call them. And then you did a couple of other things and then you bought an embroidery machine and boom. So did you, when you went to school, did you think you were going to be a fashion designer
No,
or?
I thought I would be like the head buyer at, you know, Foley's, which is not here anymore,
Okay.
you know, that sort of thing, a fashion buyer. But
Okay.
what happened was the reality of retail set
Yeah.
in fairly soon afterwards because I moved up right after college. I moved to Dallas and was working for this high-end ladies boutique. And what got me, besides the pettiness of them, you know, if you even looked in the direction of one of their customers, but then I kept looking down and seeing all these women who had been working in retail for years, having to wear high heels, and they're
Mhm.
all wearing sandals now because their toes don't really fit in their shoes anymore, and their toes are all crunched up, and they've all got big bunions, and you know, and
Mhm.
their feet hurt constantly. And I go, no, no, not doing
Not
that.
not for me.
No, I like my toes the way they are.
Yeah.
And so I just came back to Houston and got the first job that paid me money, which happened to be that merchandising job, you know, which was fairly brainless work.
Yeah, which is sometimes what you need. I mean,
Yeah.
gotta keep yourself fed. So then you said Tropical Storm Allison flooded your house, and then your insurance payment let you get an embroidery machine. Is that
Yes.
how it went?
Yeah. We didn't get a lot of water, but we got enough that we had to, you know, do some remodeling. And our insurance adjuster told Tim and I, if you do this, this, and this, you may get your deductible back from the insurance company.
Oh.
And Tim said, well, Jane, if you do that and we get the deductible back, you can have it to go buy that sewing machine, because I've been talking about getting a sewing machine, a Bernina. I'd always wanted one. So
Mm-hmm.
we got the money and I went shopping and they showed me this sewing machine, and it also had this embroidery part of it, which I hadn't thought about, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm smart enough to know that if I didn't get it, I wouldn't
You're going
ever,
to be thinking about it.
you know, the money would be gone and I would not have, we'd have to have another big flood for me to get the embroidery part of it. So I just went ahead and invested in it and just fell in love with it. Just, you know, I'd sit there and just watch it stitch for hours,
You know,
which of
I think
course you
that's,
had to because you had to change the thread colors.
well, yeah, but I think that's funny because that's something I've run an embroidery machine once in my life, but I can sit and watch it run
Mhm.
it's fascinating to me.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have no desire to really be the person telling it what to do, but I just like watching it.
I do too, especially a lot of when I'm doing the more complicated designs, but
Mhm.
I always watch it. I'm always in the room with it. My machine, my Barrett, is just like a lot of people. I started to say a lot of men, but I won't be that way. You know, they need your attention, and if they think
Uh-huh.
you're not paying attention, they're going to act up. So I just hang out in there, and I usually watch it stitching whatever it's doing.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I like this comment from Melanie. She says, "Oh yes, embroidery changes people. When you are once hanging at the needle, you can never walk away from it." And I
Yeah,
think that's true. I mean, I think embroiderers are a very specific breed of people, even though there's lots of variations within,
right.
but there's all certain things that I think are the traits of embroiderers, maybe. I don't know.
Mm.
But anyway, and who am I to talk? Because I'm not one, and Eric said, love these stories, by the way, wrote up some of those jeans in an article too.
Oh
Awesome
yeah, I
work.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all kind of got to know each other at the same time, pretty much. I think
Yeah.
Eric and you and I. So I wanted to also talk about, so you have this business and you've structured it the way you want and you've got things going the way you want. And did you set out to do that, or did you just start, you had your embroidery machine and then gradually you started getting business, or you were making things for Tim, or how did that happen?
At first, I was like, I think most embroidery people or even screen printers or whatever, trying to be all things to all people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just doing this and that and bringing in blank goods and hoping people would order them and doing a lot of thinking I was going to do a lot of baby things. But then after about, 2 or 3 years, I realized that I didn't have the room to stock blank goods. And I
Mm-hmm.
really didn't like, doing monogramming, or I'll do baby things, but only special occasions. So
Mm-hmm.
I really spent most of this time I've been in business has not really been finding out what I want to do, but realizing what I don't want to do
Well,
and
which I
not
think
doing
is
it.
important.
Yeah. And so I steer away from things. And for the first few years, I felt like I had to do the embroidery myself, that people would know if it wasn't my machine and my hands that had touched it. And then after a while, when I realized I hate doing caps, I started contracting those out. I hate caps.
A
And
lot of people do.
yeah. And also when I would get some, large orders and
Mm-hmm.
just be standing there at the machine for felt like weeks. And so now I've been very fortunate. I have the contract people I use now, I absolutely love. I used another contract house before them that were great. They were wonderful too, but they're a little bit too far away from me, and there was a lot of road construction. So I contract out the embroidery, which then gives me someone to contract screen printing to, because I don't do any of
Oh,
that
there
kind
you
of
go.
stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's just really, in fact, that 3-minute paid fishing shirt order was screen printing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just learning that I don't want to do this. I don't want, people call me, say, can you put a monogram on a, shirt cuff? Mm,
No.
yes, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
I have one client that I put his, not his initials, but his logo on his shirt cuffs for him.
Mm-hmm.
But, I love him. I'll do that for him. But the rest of
Right.
the world, no.
So when you tell somebody, yes, but I really don't want to, do you have somebody else you recommend, or do you
Sometimes
just,
I do, yeah. Yeah, I
okay.
try to, especially if it's somebody here in my neighborhood, because we've
Mm-hmm.
got several young ladies that, are doing embroidery at home. Most of them are still working with a Bernina-like machine,
Right.
a needle, but that's okay. And
Yeah.
I refer them, to other people.
Okay.
I try to refer people as much as I can. I have a very good friend of mine who's another vendor at the Rodeo that she knows this and she still loves me anyway. But if I have a committee that comes to me that are taking up too much of my time, or they're a real pain in the butt, I will say, I don't think that I can do this job the way you deserve it to be done. Why don't you call? And I give them name and number.
And she tell your friends.
And she just takes it one and all. She takes everybody.
Oh my, that's funny. Well, the one I wanted to ask you, because you were talking about working with contract embroiderers or contract decorators, and that's something we haven't really talked about. How did you find the people you worked with, and when did you know that it was time to do something like that? Because that, I know, is a big fear for some people, is they aren't ready, or they're going to contract with somebody that's not good.
Well, and that's, that's difficult. I met both of the contract shops that I've used through our regional Promotional Products Association, Houston Promotional Products Association, because they're there, and that's very important for people to be involved with their regional. A lot of times as decorators, we don't think we need to be going to promotional product stuff, but you do, because there's people there that can help you. And I found both of these people there, and I had a problem with, trusting them. The first contract house does nothing but contracts, so that wasn't a problem. But the other contract house, they are a division of a promotional products distributor. And people going, but I went over there and visited with them, and they told me that, the salespeople that work on the promotional products side of it know that, if they walk through the embroidery area and they see somebody's logo printing out, and they go, if it's not a current client of theirs also, and they go and solicit them, then they could be in trouble. So I felt comfortable, and I have not had a problem at all with that, and they do. But the main thing for me was if they did the same quality of work.
Well, yeah, that would be.
There's a lot of contract embroidery shops in Houston, and some of them are just wretched. And I've visited with almost all of them, but I was looking for the same quality that my machine puts out.
Well, and the same quality of work, attention to detail that you do too. Because now, did you sign a contract with them, or no? It's just all a handshake deal that they're not going to screw you, and you're okay. That's interesting.
Now, I think for them, because they have a lot of integrity, but they also know, because I'm involved with the Houston Promotional Products Association, if they screwed me over, I'm going to spread the word.
So part of that was because you're well known enough in enough circles in Houston that you could do them some damage if they. Okay, so that's an interesting kind of balancing act, I would guess you have to do, and I could see why you did it the way you did it, because you knew that you had the clout to impact them if they did you dirty, so to speak. Well, okay, that makes sense. I mean, I was just interested because I know that's, I guess, the other question then is, at what point did you look around? Was there like a monetary level, or was it a time thing?
No, it was a volume level. It was a 144 cap order.
Okay.
And I just said, oh God, no. Because doing one cap at a time on my single head, that'd take me a couple of years.
Pretty intensive.
Yeah. So I just, it's at that point I said, I took my cap driver off my machine, put it in the closet. People say, can you do caps for me? And because I never had a minimum. If you wanted one cap, I'd do it. But once I took the cap driver off, contract place, it's 12 pieces minimum. I said, my cap driver broke and I can't afford to get it replaced. So I have to send caps out, and the minimum is 12. So
now that's another question too, because I'm trying to get a sense of the scale, because I would imagine some of the stuff you do for Rodeo is, if you're doing something for an entire committee or something, you're getting a pretty big amount of garments or whatever.
Well, I do, but it really depends on what it is. But like all the jackets and vests I put names on, those come in batches.
Okay.
So I'm not overwhelmed, here. I work it that way. If I've only got, room to bring home, 3 dozen to do, then that's all I do. I don't try to, one year we tried to have me keeping blanks here, but I ran out of space,
Oh, I imagine. I mean,
Yeah. So I just kind of, I know if it's a committee that I'm doing something for. Well, for one thing, I try not to do the bigger committees. I know they're a pain. They really are not worth the effort. Just, I do the smaller ones, but I just do it in batches. I do a little bit and then ship it out and do it, so I'm not overwhelmed.
Now, let me ask you this, because I've heard you say this a lot while we've been talking, and I think it's really interesting. It's a point I want to make, which is you seem to be very clear on how you want your life and your business and everything to be structured. So is it just as simple as deciding I don't want to do this and then saying no?
Yep.
That's it. And you just have, because I think that's really hard for a lot of people. And I could see a lot of people going, well, I don't really want to do that, but, you've heard all the same stuff I've heard.
Well,
if I say no, then maybe they'll never ask me again. Or if I say no, then, but you seem, so what's your secret, Jane Swan?
Well, I don't really care if they like me or not.
Well, and that's a big secret, actually.
And so if I say no and then they don't want to ever use me again, I'm like, okay, they'll circle back around to me if they need to, but it's I don't take it personal.
Okay, that makes sense. And you don't seem like you've ever particularly been worried about finding jobs.
No.
That you just kind of always knew that if this is what you wanted, you would figure it out. Which I think is a great trait to have. So kudos to you on that one. Now, I do have one other thing that I want to ask you about, and this is purely me being curious, so you can tell me to go to hell if you want to. But you and Tim, your husband, have been together, 26 years, you said?
26 years.
26 years. But you just got married in February.
Yes.
Which I think is just absolutely adorable. But here's my curiosity. Never having been married and not being sure that I particularly would want to, what prompted you after 26 years to go, we need to do that?
It actually wasn't anything real romantic, but we were supposed to, in April, we were going on a photo safari to South Africa.
Right.
And we've been common law married for 20 years.
Well, sure.
But not knowing what it would be like if we got over to South Africa and one or the other of us had a medical issue, if they would and especially since I used my last name, I've never taken his name, if we would have any problem with saying, unplug her, I don't want her anymore, or that kind of thing. So it was just it was the trip to South Africa, which hopefully is going to happen in August, to make sure that we could make a decision for the other one being out of the country.
So it was primarily legalities, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I like him,
Well, I kind of figured after 26 years, you probably had him broke in. So
I tell people all the time, I said, if something happens to Tim, I'm not getting another one. I am not training another one. No, this is it. But we met at barbecue, at the Rodeo barbecue.
Really?
Cook-off, yes. In February 26 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of our friends that are married now met at barbecue, but he was with a barbecue cook-off team. I thought he had a lot of money. Yeah, and it was really cold, and I had a really big puffy jacket on, and he thought I had more than I have. So,
Oh my gosh, I love you guys.
and then the next week we went out on our first date to our little favorite Mexican restaurant, and he used a buy one get one free coupon.
You went, well, damn.
I should have gotten up and run, but I didn't. I thought it was cute.
That's adorable. Like I said, I think it's such a sweet story. And I just was kind of curious because I and we have more comments here. Evelyn says, whoops, now I need to see some Swanzy jeans. So you need to put some up on your Facebook page, I think. And if you will just throw that up there again, Jane can put some pics up for you.
Yeah. My Facebook page isn't very updated, but this will give me the incentive.
Yeah, give you some incentive to update your Facebook page. And Evelyn also says, Jane, you are my hero. We are two peas in a pod. Like that. And Jeunesse is here. Hi, Jeunesse. Thanks for popping in. And I mean, this whole thing has made me laugh. I think there's been so much that has been really valuable about how you've structured things and what you've done. And frankly, I admire it because I have to say, I'm just starting out on figuring out what I want to do. And one of the things that I've been combating a lot is people meaning well, I mean, totally meaning good things, but going, you must do this. You have to do this. You have to. And I'm like, but I don't want to do that. I don't like doing that. I don't think it'll be fun if I do that. I mean, and I understand that business isn't always fun, but I don't think I'll enjoy it enough to want to make that a piece of whatever I do.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's, I think, one of the things that for me has been really interesting is that, you have done that. You've built, and I'm not going to say that I'm not going to assume that it was never without any angst or any moments of, oh, what the hell am I doing? But you seem to have structured things in a way that works for you. And I think that's admirable. So kudos to you on that one, Jane.
Thank you.
Well, and I think it's also something that is really helpful for other female business owners to see because I mean, I've been around this industry 14 years. I'm 51 years old, and I still have had people coming at me like I just stepped out of a crate somewhere and I have no experience of the world.
Yeah.
And, and like I said, totally meaning well, totally wanting to help me, but it's like, I think I got it. I'm good. I can manage it, So I really like a lot of what you said about the rodeo and meeting people and making connections and all that. And I think that's another big piece for women a lot is women tend to think if they network with the idea of making connections that potentially could be useful in a business context, that they're somehow doing something wrong. And I mean, I'm assuming that the people at the rodeo are also friends of yours now.
Yeah, a lot of them are. Yeah.
But I mean, you've also been working with them for a huge number of years.
And trying to, make them aware of me, not just of my business, but of me through my volunteer efforts. I've gone up and down on committees, and now I'm a lifetime, so I don't have to. It's my best thing. I love it when I'm out at an event and they say, what do you do? And I go, well, I'm a lifetime committeeman on the school art committee. I can do anything I want, but I don't have to do anything. But here I am.
I can do anything I want, but I don't have to. Now, so basically you have a lifetime membership on that committee?
Well, no, I'm a life member of the rodeo, which means we don't have to pay annual dues. But
I see.
They came up a few years ago because there was just getting too many people staying on committees that weren't actually doing anything anymore.
Oh, okay. They
Like
just
they were
wanted.
3,000 years old and they didn't want to get off the committee because they still wanted to have some rodeo privileges. So
Sure.
they created this lifetime committeeman's committee. So they just changed the formula. But at the time, if you had to be at least 55 and you had to have at least 15 years on a committee or on committees, but the totals had to add up to 75. And then
Wow.
you could become lifetime, which meant, I couldn't be in management anymore, which is fine. I don't want to be in management, but I still, have parking privileges and I have a badge that gets me on the grounds and stuff like that.
Okay. So it's
So,
basically like if you've donated a lot of time and effort,
you're right.
we're just basically saying thanks a lot.
Yeah, you can come out here if you want to, but you don't have to.
No, that's
But
kind of a cool perk.
I have found myself actually doing more since I became lifetime because I'm not, I can do a variety of things. Before,
Sure.
I only did this on school art, but now I can do anything on school art because I'm one of those people that can come out during the day, during the week and help,
Right.
so.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, we're a smidge into bonus
Uh-oh.
time now.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to do the, well, bonus time is like a given, so no big deal. So I'm going to give you a little bit. Swan Threads is Jane's website. And whoops, this is her Facebook page. And if you want to see Rodeo Houston, that's Rodeo Houston. So thank you, Jane. I appreciate this so much. That was such a good talk. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you doing this. And hopefully we'll get the. Well,
yeah.
Hey, I had fun. I mean, this was a good conversation. I think we shared a lot of good information. So I so appreciate this. I'm going to pop you out and say goodbye to everybody, and we'll go from there. Thanks. And thank you, everybody who watched today. Thank you for all the great comments. I appreciate it so much. And I'll ask y'all to join me back here next week. My guest will be Pilar Harrison, and we're going to talk about all things sparkly. It'll be fun. Thanks for joining us, guys. I really appreciate it. And you all have a good day.